Lokalni izbori u 9 opština i u gradu Boru u Srbiji završeni su. Pobedu je odnela lista Aleksandar Vučić Srbija naša porodica, odnosno lokalne liste okupljene oko politike Srpske napredne stranke. Prema mišljenju mnogih, ovi lokalni izbori imali su nacionalni značaj. Te u uslovima obojene revolucije i hibridnog političkog pritiska na suverenitet Srbije bili su obeleženi brojnim incidentima. Levo-liberalne snage u Srbiji, blokaderske liste i njihovi mentori u zapadnoj Evropi potrudili su se da kompromituju izborni proces, te da na svaki način spreče pobedu suverenističke politike Aleksandra Vučića. Da bi demokratski karakter i ovih izbora bio do kraja obezbeđen, izbore su posmatrale brojne međunarodne misije i organizacije. Posebno objektivan pristup imale su posmatračke misije ili njihove organizacije iz Sjedinjenih Američkih Država. Zato su bile i ostale predmet napada mnogih woke liberalističkih grupacija iz Evropske unije i njihovih filijala u našoj zemlji. Da li je demokratija u Srbiji odbranjena? Da li je očuvan integritet izbornog procesa na lokalnim izborima? Te kakva je budućnost srpsko-američkih odnosa? Samo su neke od naših večerašnjih tema. Moje ime je Ognjen Karanović, a ovo je još jedan Troglas. Večeras razgovaramo sa uvaženim predstavnicima američkog društvenog i političkog života i predstavnicima organizacija koje su bile zvanični posmatrači izbornog procesa u 10 opština i gradova, odnosno u jedinicama lokalne samouprave, a ti izbori su održani juče, 29. marta 2026. godine. Zadovoljstvo nam je da vam predstavimo gospodina Briana Browna, predsjednika Međunarodne organizacije za porodicu, i gospodina Jakea Hoffmana iz Nacionalne federacije mladih republikanaca. Mr. Brown, Mr. Hoffman, first of all, welcome to Serbia, welcome to Documentary TV and to show Troglas.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Mr. Brown, can you tell us a few words about your organization? What is its main activity? Why and when was it founded? You will understand. A large part of the citizens in our country, in Serbia, may not be well acquainted with the work of your organization.
Well, the International Organization for the Family is my organization, and it was founded in 1999. We're probably best known for putting on large events around the world called the World Congress of Families. And we were founded because we saw that there was a concerted effort to undermine around the world faith, family, and freedom. And so it may be different in different countries, but everyone can see that Soros and others don't want countries to embrace their tradition, family, and faith. And so we started in 99. We've had a number of World Congress of Families, these big events. We had one with Prime Minister Viktor Orban in Budapest, Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni in Italy. We just recently had an event in Mexico City with over 12,000 people. And we try and bring people together and show that people are not alone in standing for faith and family. And we've been active in Serbia and in a lot of the Orthodox world. In fact, we did have one World Congress of Families with the recently passed away Patriarch Ilya in Georgia.
May I be a member of your organization?
Love to have you.
Thank you. Mr. Hoffman, we have a similar question for the organization you represent. The Young Republicans are part of the Republican Party.
Yeah, so it is. You have the Republican Party, which is one of the two major parties in the United States, and then the Young Republicans are just from 18 years old to 40 years old. So it's sometimes we're confused with college Republicans, but we are actually all the way up until 40 years old, and we have many members across the entire country, and many of us are people who work in politics or elected ourselves or are activists for different elections in different states. And again, we are a very big country, so we have state federations and local and city, but we do have a national federation that goes up as well.
What is your primary goal? The primary goal of your organization, of Young Republican National Federation?
We say it is to recruit, train, and elect. So that is to find people who are looking to run for office, train them in how politics works, and get them the network to start to interact with people who may be elected, who may be people who run other organizations around political events, and all of that. And then some people are just interested in coming and learning about what's going on, whether it's local or county or federal. And then get them. One day, it'd be great to get, a lot of our young people elected. A lot of times we do not have youth representation in, especially the Republican Party. We tend to have very old members of Congress up there in Washington, D.C. And, I'm from Florida, and we have been doing our best to export Florida values into Washington, D.C. and internationally.
Yeah. So that's some kind of political academy in education, and not just in educational sense or word.
We also do a lot of events every month. So even just maybe we will throw a dinner, or we will have a pool party, or we'll go out on a boat. Because sometimes a lot of people want to interact with other people of the same political persuasion. So they need a space to be able to meet each other, have a network around the city that they live in. And then there is the more formal training to get people involved in politics.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
And then same question for both of you. You were accredited observers in the elections for representative bodies of municipalities and cities in Serbia yesterday. What did you find out? First of all, which polling stations did you visit, and which municipalities did you visit? What are your conclusions, Mr. Brown, and of course, Mr. Hoffman?
Well, I visited two municipalities, Savojna and Banja Bašta. And the number one thing I'll say is that inside the polling booth, inside the polling stations, the way that the government conducted the vote was interesting for me because it was very secure. And
In what way?
Well, the process is clear. You come in, you have a voter ID, you show your ID, you check the finger to see whether they voted before. You get sprayed at the end. You sign off your name. The process is very clear. Whatever polling station I was at.
What is so specific about that?
Well,
you don't have that in U.S.?
Yeah, this is the thing that I think it's difficult to understand when I started talking about this to friends in Serbia, is that every state has their own laws in the United States, and many states don't have any voter identification.
How is that possible?
Well, we're trying to stop it. There's the Save America Act, which just passed the House, that President Trump supports, that will make one federal standard so that you have to show your ID.
Thanks
but
God.
right now, in most states, you do not have to show a picture ID. You do not.
So, if I'm on visit to United States during election process, then I can be a voter, or...
Theoretically, if you went in, you lied, and you knew someone's address, yes. Because even in my state, I live in Pennsylvania.
Yes.
It's not required. I walk into my voting station, I say my name, I do not give any voter ID. I look at a list, I say my name and address, and then I go and I vote.
Oh my God.
Yes, so
We're doing a little better in Florida, but many
he
other
lives
states.
he lives in a better state.
But many other states, you would be able to vote. New York, California, especially if you had an address like you're talking about, where they just mail you the vote. I think that's one of the things that.
Well,
people,
I have some relatives in New York.
they probably will have a ballot sent to their house, maybe 2 or 3 in New York and California and some of these other states, where we just send people ballots, and I think that's one of the most unsecure ways of voting, and that is very standard in the United States right now, especially since COVID.
Oh my God. But I said in 2020 that the American Post is most powerful institution in the world, actually. They can produce a new president, and Joe Biden became president in that year. And when I hear what are you talking about, the election process and legislation there, and it's understandable.
Well, that's a part of this Save America Act that President Trump is firmly pushing and has made it out of the House. We know that there's a massive problem. This is a massive problem. America is, by many, seen as a beacon of hope, a beacon of democracy, a beacon of freedom. One of the most important things is having your vote count. The fact that we have this massive problem, and it is so different, not just from Serbia, I've been all around the world. Most countries in Europe follow a similar system, and voter ID is required. We don't have this. This, for both mail-in ballots and for in-person voting, this Save America Act will regularize this and make it much more in the same line of what I saw here. But that is not currently the case, and I will tell you, your elections compared to what we have in the United States are very secure, very orderly. Everything that I saw happening inside, it was very clear that people knew what they were supposed to do. I asked about this piece of paper that people bring with them.
Notice.
Yeah, this notice. Almost everyone had that piece of paper, and then I asked, is it required? And they said, no, not really, if you have your voter ID. But everyone is so concerned about making sure they follow the rules and their vote being counted that they still bring in the notice.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. So it was very interesting for me to see. And, you know, again, if people are complaining about the election process here, what's going on inside these polling stations is far above the security that we see in the United States.
Thank you for that answer. And your views, you have been, of course, accredited observer. Where have you been? In which municipality or polling station?
Yeah, so we visited 3 different polling stations around Kula yesterday.
Around Kula?
Yes,
yeah.
And from my experience, is very similar to what we're talking about. The one thing that I noticed more than anything was how many observers you had. So many people inside the polling station and around the polling station, and many from the opposition party and the ruling party. Both of them are there, and there are so many eyes on these ballots. It's like, how much could possibly happen when you're talking about a paper ballot going in a box and you have 25 people in the room all looking at that, and they're counting, and everybody's keeping track, and people are held accountable by all of the people in the room. That was what I really noticed more than anything. And then, talking about, I think a lot of people, they're used to their own systems. So here in Serbia, you have people, maybe people like to complain about, I saw this or this happened. And I think that they need to understand that there are a lot of people in America who would love to go back to the system that you have here with paper ballots. This is you hear it all the time, especially in the Republican Party, because just yesterday, while we were here, they arrested somebody in Palm Beach County, where I'm from Palm Beach County, where Mar-a-Lago district, and they found him stealing the encrypted key to change the voting machine, codes where you could actually work on the election machines. And this is standard in America, in all of Europe, and almost everywhere around the world. We have this machinery, but you do not have this here.
No.
So as much as people may have an issue with something here, there's something very beautiful about how simplistic it is to just put the paper ballot in the box and not have to deal with all of the extra technology that can be corrupted, as we're seeing, even just yesterday.
So you didn't see any possibility for stealing a vote, for any kind of fraud on a polling station?
Nothing that I saw at a polling station. And I spoke with people of the opposition party, and I heard their complaints, and then I think it is up to them, if they have real problems, to bring the proof to the right authorities if there's something there. Other than that, from what I saw, like I said, there are so many people watching the process that there's nothing that I saw there that was fraudulent.
Yes, but Mr. Brown, all of Serbia saw your public address yesterday, and of course yours,
sure.
Mr. Hoffman. I think you were. You just said you were in Sevojno.
Yeah.
You noticed on the street people wearing red badges. Mm-hmm. For example, badges with an illustration of bloody fist. Mm-hmm. Do you know that these are left liberal political groups that carried out a color revolution in Serbia? Yesterday they had task of compromising the electoral process and preventing citizens from freely expressing their views in the elections. Was that your impression? Could you say that?
Well, my impression was that, especially just walking down the sidewalks of the areas near the polling station, that there would be a number of people congregated on the sidewalk, and it was clearly meant to intimidate, meaning you couldn't just walk through them, you had to walk around them, and then across the street would be the police. There were a number of people with these red badges there. They didn't look particularly happy. They didn't look like someone you would want to try and weave your way through the sidewalk. And then, I saw that and I recorded a little bit of it. And then we saw this big event happen in Banja Basta with someone with evidently a toy gun. It wasn't or a gun getting out of the car, and a brawl occurring. And, I had posted something about this, and immediately those on the left said, this is an example of the government's police officers being abusive. So it was instantaneous. It was like the script was already written that we're going to blame the government. And people didn't pause. And then immediately I see that good news reporters are finding out that this is a member of the opposition. And so, I simply wrote the facts. And it was what was clear to me is that sort of the environment of seeing this intimidation, that it wasn't that far away to getting some sort of confrontation. And just from my perspective, seeing these folks outside of the polling booth congregated together on the sidewalk, looking the way that they were looking, it looked like they wanted an incident of some sort. It looked like that was not something that they were trying to avoid. And then when an incident does happen, immediately, without even finding out the facts, the blame is put on the government. So, we've seen this sort of thing in the United States before. We've seen where, especially prior to Trump, the left controls most of the media, and immediately whatever the narrative is that is going to advance their attack on the Republican Party, that immediately is what goes up. And then it takes a while to figure out what actually happened. And back before Fox...
I saw that on your mainstream media.
But back before Fox News, the correction would be a lot less than the initial false information. Luckily now we have ways of correcting it. But it reminded me of that sort of immediately jumping on any narrative, whether it's true or not, to attack. If people have something they want to complain about, as you said, they need to go through the process and they need to provide proof. You can't just say whatever you want and expect people to accept it as true without having any proof. What I saw, I tried to the best of my ability convey exactly what I saw according to the truth. That's all I did. But even when I did that, I saw a lot of pushback, where a lot of anger simply for me releasing that video saying exactly what I saw.
Yes. Mr. Hoffman, what was your conclusion at the end of the election day or during it? Was there an attempt yesterday to prevent voters from voting freely?
Well, let me ask
according to their will.
What was the final turnout percentage of the voters? It was very high, correct?
In Kula?
Everywhere, right? It was very high.
Yes. Approximately, I don't know, I think 65 or 70%.
That is extremely high for only 10 municipality election, right? So if the answer is that you are having 65, 70, 75% turnout, obviously, people are not too intimidated to go to the polling station. Again, we just had a special election in Tampa this week, 25% turnout, 25%. And we mail people ballots, and still only 25%.
They're not so interesting for the local
Not the local elections like the special elections. And so, if people feel like, oh, there are so many people out there that are intimidating me to go to vote, from what I saw, there were a lot of people standing around on the sidewalks and outside of the polling stations, but it seemed like it was from opposition side. You saw the badges, and then you saw, I'm sure that there were people there from the government side as well, but everybody there seems to be keeping each other occupied in the meantime as people come in and out voting. And if you have a 75% turnout, you must not be that intimidated to be able to go to the poll and make the decision.
Of course. And I have to ask you, both of you, have you heard about the call centers? And I don't ask you that by chance. Do you have that in political teams or political parties, in the organizations of political activists in US during the electoral process? Does one candidate or I don't know, candidate for the American Senate, for the some position in a federal state, does he have a call center with hired activists who work there, electoral campaign? Do you have that in the United States?
Of course you do. I mean, I've helped run 4 statewide referenda, including one in California, where you're talking about 60 million voters. I mean, and so of course you have candidates and causes that come together and get their activists to call and get out their voters. You need a machine. You need a way of getting people out to vote. You know who your voters are, so of course you're going to call them and say, have you been able to get out to vote today? This is, Brian, I'm calling from this organization. That happens all the time. It's not only candidates. A group called Catholic Vote. I was a part of them calling and encouraging Catholic voters to get out to vote in support of candidates that Catholic Vote supported, that were part of our values. So, this is a part of any democracy. Anywhere where you have direct voting, people are going to want to figure out a way to get out their supporters to vote. So it's common.
I think that it's actually one of the biggest complaints that I hear from Americans is they get too many phone calls and that they get too many text messages now. And this is like very, very standard practice, not just in America, but also in Europe and many other places. So I don't think there's anything nefarious about having a call center from your own campaign. Like I said, we get dozens and dozens of phone calls and text messages trying to encourage us to come out to vote, both Republican, both Democrat, and like Brian is saying, many different organizations all doing the same type of thing, trying to get people's attention to get them to vote.
You know that, I know that, but I'm trying to find some posts on social medias about this topic. And they said, regardless whether by phone, social media, or so on, that is against moral standards, I don't know why, to call supporters to just to vote on election day. And the team of Aleksandar Vučić and the Serbian Progressive Party are constantly being accused of the work of these call centers. Nothing more. They want to create the impression that the call centers is some kind of dark headquarters where frauds, electoral election frauds, are being prepared. And that is the main objections against government or ruling political party. And that's insane for me. And I'm trying to be objective here.
Well, I mean, again, you have to, both sides do this. Everyone, Joe Biden, it's just normal part of politics. Obama, the Democratic National Committee had massive call centers set up to make sure that Democrats get out to vote. Republicans do the same thing. It's open to everyone. Whatever your party is, you have the right to contact your voters to ask them to get out to vote. I don't understand why it's immoral.
No, I don't know.
Because a part of, we want to make sure as many people get out to vote as possible. People should be enthusiastic when parties, even if I disagree with the party, are trying to encourage people to get out to vote and to be a part of their country. So my view is the opposite of it being immoral. My view is that it is a good thing that parties work and function in a way where they can encourage their voters to get out and vote and to help them if necessary. Again, there are buses that the Democratic National Committee and the Republican National Committee helped. If someone is old and they have difficulty getting to the polls, there are ways to help them get to the polls. This is just a normal part of a functioning Republican democracy.
Yeah. I think that too, but as you can see, we had a different opinion in some political groups here in Serbia. And speaking of Serbia and political groups, are you familiar with the situation in Serbia over the last year, and how do you know what has been happening here?
We've gotten quite a lot of information, I think, since we've arrived here, and really learning about the political situation on the ground, and then experiencing it firsthand ourselves, I think.
What are your conclusions, if you have one?
Well, I think that you are in a situation where, look, you have a party that is a majority at this point, and we have this in many states in America, and right now we have it in Washington, D.C. We have all three Republican, and sometimes when you have one party that has become so popular that then you have these groups that pop up and they are in opposition, and they will do anything they can to try to attack the party in power, and whether that means by violent means, by color revolution type of propaganda, from what you're seeing in the impact on NGOs and outside money and influence that come in, and other countries that maybe want to come in and they want to influence the current administration or the direction that Serbia may go. These are all types of things that you're going to have to deal with as a nation in your position here with a party that is fully in charge, and then many outside influences that want to change things here.
Yes. And your opinion, Mr. Brown?
Well, I think that, I'm pretty familiar with what goes on in Serbia. I've spent a significant amount of time here, and I know that
You're not here for the first time.
No, this is not my first time. I've spent a lot of time in Serbia. I love it. I love being here. I know that there was the great tragedy that occurred, and the deaths that occurred, and I saw that in the news, and I realized that people were upset and angry about that. But in a functioning democracy, when you disagree, you organize, you go to the polls, and you have your vote. What you don't do is you don't use violence to get to attain your ends. What you don't do is to use a tragedy as a means of inciting a color revolution, potentially through violence. Doing illegal acts, stopping people from being able to get to their jobs, stopping people from being able to go to university.
Especially that.
We've seen all this. In the 60s, we saw this in the United States. We saw the attempts to shut down the universities. We saw violence. We had the Black Panthers. We had all sorts of, there were terrorist groups moving forward. So my view is that what I saw yesterday was the way a functioning democracy works. Whether people like the outcome or not, that's a secondary question. We can all have our differences.
That's the part of democracy too.
Yeah.
But we can all have our differences of opinion. Yeah. What we cannot have is a group of people using violence or the threat of violence to intimidate others to get their way, and to openly lie and cheat and, again, threaten in order to achieve their ends. The election happened. People may disagree with the election. Of course, if there are legitimate complaints, all we saw is what we could see inside the polling place. I'm not claiming anything other than what I saw with my own eyes. If there are complaints, they go up through the relevant authorities. But again, what you can't have, and what we've seen in country after country, is especially foreign money coming in and pushing a color revolution under the guise of liberalism and democracy, but really undermining democracy by using violence
and
as a threat.
Liberalism too.
Of course.
Have you heard about the name Lukasz Kondratyuk, maybe?
No, I've not.
Do you know who is that guy? Well, and his accusations. He is from the European left liberal, practically Antifa organization under the name of European Platform for Democratic Election. and I'll read what he said. And his statement that statement was reported by the local opposition, blocking media, woke media, basically. And he said that you are representatives of conservative organizations that support undemocratic elections in Georgia, Hungary, Serbia, and so on. Is this also the case in the USA, that the left liberal, non-national, mostly mainstream media immediately label all people and organizations that do not agree with them as fascists, undemocratic, conservative? I don't know what is wrong to be a conservative. If you want to be a liberal, if you want to be a conservative, be what you want to be. Yeah. I don't have a problem with that. How would you describe such a discourse of those media and organizations?
This is such a common tactic in America. At this point, it actually doesn't even work anymore, because you're talking about 150 million people who are all voting for Donald Trump, right? They are all, voting for the Republican Party, right? Like over the last 10 years, there's so many different votes that go towards the Republican Party over the years. We can't all be fascist. We can't all be, all of these horrible things that they like to say. And any time anybody is on the right, you start adding all these labels to them. Oh, they support this, they support that. You can't do it anymore in America. Maybe they're trying to still see if it works here in Serbia, that you attach us to something somebody else does somewhere else in the United States, or somebody else does somewhere else in the rest of the world. It doesn't work anymore. And what I see with this situation is the same that I saw when I did this election observation in Georgia in October as well. And what I've seen is that there are powers outside of the country that we are in right now, mostly in the EU, and we have fake NGOs and fake journalists. They are paid to try to push an agenda, and by labeling us as far right or as fascist or whatever it is that they want to label us as, they try to take away our legitimacy and our opinions and what we see with our own eyes and ears. And you can say that all day long, but it doesn't mean that anything is true. And we've learned this in America. Hopefully, you guys have learned this in Serbia as well. Just because you print it on the internet does not mean it is true.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah.
And we found out that this guy, Lukasz Kondratyuk, were in Georgia too, but not as observer. He was an activist for the opposition party there, pro-European, left liberal. I don't know their name. I'm so sorry. And that, for him, that is a legitimate.
Well, this is the most important thing, that the second that the liberals accuse you of something, you should look at what they're accusing you of, and you can bet that they're doing it. Okay, this is the great...
It's like 100% of the time.
This is the great irony, and the reality is exactly right. What you said, this doesn't work anymore. I've been a conservative activist since I was 16 years old. I've seen every label that they've thrown. I saw what they tried to do to President Trump, including throwing him in jail. Yeah. I saw the lies that they've said about us. And it no longer works. Trump won the election. And if you want to say I'm conservative, yes, I am, 100%. And if you want to say you're liberal, fine. Let's have a
liberal,
debate.
okay,
that's
fine with me.
But the next step in saying, because you believe what you believe, you're a fascist or whatever, take what they say and look at what they do. We're here observing. We're here encouraging democracy. We're here supporting truth. Immediately what we see on the internet is an attempt to destroy us and attack us. But what I have learned is, go ahead, do your best. We keep speaking the truth. You refuse to back down. If you're a Serbian and you believe in Serbia and you believe in standing for your country, so what if a few people attack you? So what if a few people throw names at you? And I think that what's happened, especially with Trump winning the election and the Republicans gaining so much, is that many of us who were attacked for so long and saw him being attacked, it doesn't matter what they say anymore. But it's important to do what you've done, is to point out that it's almost always the case that what they say you're doing, they are doing themselves in a much worse way. So we're here as election observers. We've been totally open about what we've said.
And I think one of the things that I've seen, I've got the messages, you've got the messages. They think we're getting paid lots of money to come on here and say this. We've both taken $0 to be here, but I can tell you that your
journalist in Serbia,
your journalist over here that is criticizing us, I can guarantee is taking money from an NGO with an agenda to try to do. Yeah, we know he's taking. And if you're in multiple countries, somebody is doing that as well.
Yeah.
Paying them, they're getting money.
Yeah, and one European or pro-European, better say. Actually, he is from Croatia. Pro-European. He is not a leftist. Mm-hmm. He is a right-wing populist in Croatia, but he is an ally of left liberal parties and political centers from Brussels. He said that Croatia and the European Union should prevent Serbia and United States to become friends and allies. That they are all need to put an effort to prevent our stronger relations. And speaking about Serbian-American relations, how do you see the future of them, Mr. Brown?
Well, I was a part of, and I helped organize an event called the Alliance of Sovereign Nations with Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna just a few weeks ago. And at that event, there were over 200 legislators from around the world, by the way, including Croatia. So there were Croats, Serbs, everyone coming together to talk about how we can better advance a world in which each of our countries is truly sovereign and not controlled by some other country or group of countries. It was basically a group of people who are interested in conservative ideas coming together. And what I saw was a great relationship between the Serbian members of parliament and others that were there, and Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna and others.
Our congressman from Tampa, by the way.
Yeah,
I know. I know that.
And so I think that we're looking forward to a new and better age of relations. Of course, with Serbia, but I think any country, even with historic big differences, the people care about their country, their faith, their tradition, who they are as a people, and don't want to be controlled by Soros liberal elites and want to see what they can do. There's a lot we can learn from one another, and I think that is the new reality that's emerging, is that conservatives for too long, of course we're interested in our own traditions, our own country.
Of course,
and we all should be. But there's a lot to learn, because the left has gone and has been for a long time truly internationalist, and they've worked together internationally. And we need to work together internationally, not to create some big, overarching control.
Cominterna.
No, what we need to work together internationally is to realize how we can better advance each of our own nation's interest and see what the other side is doing, because what it may be doing in one country is different in another country. And I think that's a big vision of the future, is that we have this Alliance of Sovereign Nations, we have these groups coming together in CPAC and the World Congress of Families, and we're learning from one another, and we're getting better in combating the left's attack on our identity.
And your opinion? Do you have one?
Yes, I think what you've seen is that there are people, especially in Brussels, in the EU, that want a global government. They want a world government. They want to control all of the different countries with their own agendas and with their own, policy that they want to impose on all of these sovereign nations, as Brian is saying. And now you have America with Trump. And everybody's attitude is, maybe we don't want a big world government. Maybe we don't think that this globalism where we can just move migrants from one country to another without any consequence, and all of these things that the EU has been pushing for all of these years, maybe that doesn't work so well. So that is why you have journalists that say, oh, you shouldn't be friends with the United States, because the United States right now is pushing back. I mean, many people around the world heard what Marco Rubio, another good Floridian, by the way, came to Germany and gave his speech on where America is going and how we feel right now about the EU. And this extends to
watched him, yes.
This extends to a huge renovation going on in the State Department and in foreign policy, and the way that we view elections and some of the organizations that have maybe been long-standing, that have been corrupted by leftists. And now we are starting to pull back a bit, and that is why people would warn you, don't be friends with the United States, because they're crazy, they're all fascist, right? They're all this, they're all these terrible things they want to say about us. But what's happening right now is exactly as we were just saying. We're in trying to encourage sovereign nations and the interest of other what your people here care about, and that does not necessarily play to the globalist agenda to include you into the EU and all of the rules that they may provide you.
Or I think that you are just defending your way of life, your right for your way of life, nothing more. Mr. Hoffman, Mr. Brown, it was a great privilege to speak with you and to be your host tonight. Thank you for your time and for your answers. And I think we can organize some other conversation, and you can be our guests in some other terms. You are very interesting and wonderful people. Thank you very much.
Having us.
Thank you for having us.
Izbori su završeni. Vratimo se normalnom životu. Okrenimo se takođe važnim temama, poput obnove bliskih relacija između Srbije i Sjedinjenih Američkih Država. Bio ovo Troglas. Gledajte nas svakog ponedeljka od 20 časova, a do sledećeg druženja želimo vam svako dobro.